What up, gamers? It is Thursday, and we're continuing with our modern gameplay action here. I am NanMans, and thanks for joining us for this fun, like, throwback, old-school, modern match here. We've got Dimir Mill versus Boros Burn. If you are an old-school modern player like me, you have seen this matchup many of times before, but players are coming back. Players that haven't played in a while, players that go, hey, this deck, let's see how this does in the meta. Like, it's modern is such a fun format right now, and I keep preaching it, keep talking about it because I want you guys to be playing it because it is great. But look at these classic cards. Goblin Guide. When's the last time you saw a Goblin Guide? I don't know. So here's how things are going to work. If you're not familiar with these decks, because maybe you haven't played in a while, or maybe you weren't playing back when these were a thing and you're a newer player, here's how it is. Boros Burn is a kind of speed game plan. It does care and does take some skill about when you're sequencing and how you're laying things out when you're dropping down these burn spells. But it is a mono-red aggro style of deck. The other side of thing, it's Dimir Mill. So this is a blue-black speed mill plan. It is a little bit of a challenge. You're trying to get rid of all of your opponent's cards before they can kill you. So it is definitely a race. Now, the normal race plan of people just kind of aggroing you down, you might be able to manage it, kill their creatures, do things like that, run things like, you know, ensnaring bridges or fatal pushes like we see now, being able to help take out the creatures. And you always want to be able to push our prowess creatures because our opponents could start pumping their non-creature spells and make it really hard for us. Speaking of a non-creature spell, here's a suspended Rift Bolt. So next turn, that's going to be shooting our opponent for 3 for the price of for free. So that is the kind of name of the game. Cast as many 1-drop, 2-drop spells as you can to be able to kind of burn them down. Now, I don't see any lists running Flage, but it makes me wonder if maybe you could sneak in like 1 or 2. I wouldn't mind 2 of in a list, because most of the time you're sitting at 3 mana and you're great, but like you might get that 4th mana and be like, well, I'll just escape this Flage, all these burn spells to just kind of close the game out. But Fractured Sanity is our first big mill spell here, and that's going to be each opponent mills 14 cards. So Fractured Sanity, I have been shaving Fractured Sanity out of my list. I know 14's a lot, 3 mana is a lot, but like, I don't know. I have been adjusting. I have had Mill for a long time, and every now and again I'll go back and I'll play it and pilot it. I like Tasha's Hideous Laughter a lot. It's the other 3-drop one. But there's other cards that I'm like, you know what? Let's do that instead of going for the Fractured Sanity. There's the old school one that makes your opponent mill until they mill 4 lands. I like having at least 1 of, maybe 2 of in my list if I'm running that as a way to help close out the game or help to strip away a lot of stuff. Surgical Extraction. So this is a nice little thing here between these two players. Our Boros Burn player was like, okay, you keep looking at my graveyard. Can I look up what Surgical Extraction does? And then a mirror player's like, here, I'll show you. I have it in my hand. I'll give you this information. You know it's going to happen. You know that I'm going to be playing it at some point based on you reading into this. But we got a Skewer the Critics spectacle cost being paid because we were able to deal the damage with our Goblin Guide. Of course, Goblin Guide does have that little added bonus if you get to reveal a land, that type of deal. But Eidolon of the Great Revels, we're trying to lock our opponent out. This is kind of the way that a lot of burn decks close out the game once they get into this kind of, all right, I've got a creature on board, I've shot a bunch of spells my opponent's way, and now I can just ride this Eidolon to victory and I'll be okay. Because whenever your opponent's going to be casting, whenever a player, it's not just your opponent, you hurt yourself with this too. So be aware of this if you are going to be playing against a burn deck or using burn strategy. And so now we're going to be seeing this kind of in the tank, calculating and trying to math it out, because it is that, like, okay, my opponent's 3 lands, they don't have much cards left in hand, they do have a couple. If I surgical and strip, one of their burn spells, and this is where you go in, you double check. All right, how many have I seen? Okay, I've seen 2 Skewer the Critics in the yard, 1 Rift Bolt. Lightning Bolt seems to be the easiest one to be able to grab. So this will be before Eidolon hits the battlefield. All right, so there's a land and a Lightning Helix in hand. Yeah, look at these sweet lightning bolts. I don't know, all foiled out, deck's looking fancy, looking ready to burn people down. Yeah, it is pretty much stock list if you have seen a burn list, but I don't know. Has anybody been trying the Flage? Do you think like a 2 of in a list is cool, or am I just reaching too much? All right, so how is our mill player going to come out of here? I guess you... Oh, gosh. You have to have something here. There's not really much, though. Like, you got to be able to get rid of the Eidolon. And be able to stop the Goblin Guide. But I guess if you have an Ensnaring Bridge, that just saves... Well, it doesn't even save you because you have all these cards in your hand, right? Look at all these. There's like 5 cards in hand, so it doesn't even save us here. So yeah, we keep checking. All right, is there any lines here? Cast a Crab. That will make us take 2. Then we still have not enough to block. So yeah, we'll scoop it up. Boros Burn taking game number 1 here. Then we're diving into the sideboard. We do see Flusterstorms. We're seeing looks like some bounce effects. And that's the thing. It's like, how much are you going to dilute your game plan to make sure that you're protected? I like the Flusterstorms a lot, especially that game where we saw a lot of burn spells being cast in 1 turn. It does help us. Looks like we get a mulligan down for our burn player. And a turn 1 crab is really nice. All right, guide coming in again. Going to just reveal our top card. Now we have adjusted our camera setup here. It is a little bit more stable. You see just like the minor rocks and bumps here and there, but for the most part, it is much more steady. Our placement's a little bit off. We're still adjusting how that is looking. Part of it is also like right here, you see a bit of a glare coming up, just from where we have the camera placement and the lighting overhead. So this was our first attempt, the first week of trying out the new camera setup, and I'm pretty happy with at least the stability of the camera. So we're going to just adjust slightly a little bit more where the camera placement is to kind of set ourselves up for, I guess, the next couple of matches that you, well, I guess the next couple of matches you guys are going to see are going to still be on this setup, but it's going to be post this. In a few weeks down the road, you'll see some adjustments to it. All right, so double Goblin Guide is a great opening here. Ooh, Field. So double field makes our mana base a little bit tough here. You look at all these fatal pushes. So we have to be able to pop a land and get a swamp. Oh, this is a tough spot. All right, let's see. Boros Burn player, though, again, 2 lands is solid. It is a light land deck, so maybe that's also why people are not testing out Flage in here, because it is such a light land deck that's you're like running like 18 lands or something like that. Okay, reveal land. And now second trigger reveals a crab. Now we get the double check. Hey, can you hit basics? You can only hit non-basics with this. So Field of Ruin, non-basics. Then both players search and find, which is really good for a mill player who wants your opponent to search so they can be able to activate things like Archive Trap for the price of for free. You get to be able to force them into that search effects. Also, if players are running around and running like a 3-color deck or something, this does help a bit. But I'm seeing a lot of the top decks really being the 2-color variation. It helps kind of streamline ourselves against things like, you know, the Blood Moon type effects like Harbinger of the Seas. But we're going to try to blow up one of the lands. In response, we're going to hit with a Boros Charm. So we're going to be saying, hey, we're still going for this damage here. And it says, hey, this is all before damage. We're getting a bunch of stuff happening. So Boros Charm, 4 damage to the face. This land's going to get blown up. We'll go get another land. You're going to go get a land. Looking for a swamp. There we go. Nice little Sweet looking swamp. I do like the art for those swamps. Those, what is it, Infinity Galaxy looking ones going to outer space. Of course, landfall trigger will force us to get rid of those. Accidentally putting 2 guides into the graveyard, thinking that we were going to push both of them, but no, we do correct that real quick. So, just kidding. So now it's the decider. Okay, are we losing the crab, or are we killing off the one, like, the one that's attacking us? I think it's, again, we know the crab that was on top got shuffled away, so we lost track of what that was now. I think it is safe. I think it's safer to go for the one that is trying to deal damage to us, and we'll just try to stay alive here. All right? Yes, suspend a Rift Bolt, pass. All right. Untap, upkeep, draw. Visions of Beyond, Fatal Push, Island. We need to hit some of our big mana mill spells here. So we do a graveyard count, which if your opponent is ever counting your graveyard, that means that they've got a Visions of Beyond that does care about how many cards are there. Could also be they're trying to track and how many are in the deck, but they'll usually at that point ask and do a count for how many cards you got in your library, because, you know, that'll happen. Another island gets placed as you put your sunglasses on so you're not blinded by this. But yeah, again, we will adjust it. You'll just have to get a couple of gameplay videos that this one particular spot at the table was a little bit more glare heavy than others. Upkeep. Remove this. Suspend. Deal 3 to you. Try to drop you to 7. Which then we've got a guy to drop to 5. That's with the 2 bolts for dead. Bolt effects for dead. Or, you know, it's, I don't know, it's looking tough. It's looking tough for our mill player here. A lot of mana available, though. Trigger. Field of Ruin going to hand. Well, we're going to get all our Field of Ruins. Do we, I mean, just push it here, right? Do we just say no? Yeah, we're checking our mana base, doing our things, and just, yeah, let's absorb that. Stay at 7. Gives us a better window. This forces our opponent to, you know, have to have a very specific line. They don't have access to white right now, so we're not going to get hit with a Boros Charm immediately into a Bolt or something for Xaxes. So this is essentially, you know, falling below 6 is the scary thing when you're fighting against Burn. So trying to manage your life totals the best you can to that is one of those challenges. Now, I will tell you, one of the most fun matchups that I've fought is like Burn versus Death Shadow, where I've been on the Death Shadow mentality and being like, all right, let's really race. Let's see how low I can go before I die. Eidolon's going to cause some problems here, especially because we don't have a black source to put a stop to that. And anything else that we're going to be doing is going to be met with 2 damage. So we can respond. Yeah, Fluster Storm doesn't do anything here. The Visions we're digging. So again, that's what we were caring about. Are there 20 or more cards in the graveyard? Nope. So we will draw 1 singular card. But 1 card could make all the difference. All right, so danger mode, though. Anything that we use to get rid of the Eidolon will put us below 6. But going to 5 is not dead. So there's still a chance. So let's see. Another field makes sense. Looks like there's a Drown in the Lock here. Yeah, I like that. Like, Drown in the Lock, still have the mana to pop a land if our opponent goes for a specific land. All right. I like the options we have available to us, though. You see, there is a lot of debate about when we're going to do this and when we're going to fire it off. So let's just shoot it while we can. So Drown in the Lock, it does pull double duty both as a counter spell, but also a destroy effect. So a lot of Mill or Dimir Mill lists are running a 4 of. So be aware of that they do have essentially 8 kill spells within the list of Fatal Pushes and this, but this also counts as the Drown in the Lock can be counter spell. So most of them will not run counter spell outright because it's like, almost like a dead draw later because you're casting a lot of your stuff at sorcery speed. They tend not to have the extra mana to commit to stuff. Plus, with things like Field of the Ruin, it makes your mana base a little bit weird sometimes. So, all right. So how does our burn player respond? It's sort of like pass, but Preordained's going to get used. This is another thing some of the Mill players are testing out. How many numbers of Preordain are you going to run? Are you not running them at all? Where are you on that list? I'm currently running 0. I was running like anywhere from 3 to 4 at one point. I think you can go as low as 2 on that and be fine. Or none, right? I don't know. I don't know. It's because I'm running main board Ensnaring Bridge, I'm not running the Preordains. Most players are using their Preordains in the main board and having their bridges in the sideboard, and you can do some adjustments accordingly, but you see that this Mill player is just kind of got a grip full like all the time, which makes it really hard if you're relying on the bridge, but yeah, pass turn. Oh, no. Hey, here's a Lava Spike for 3 damage. Gonna drop you to 2. Attempt and Obscure the critics. And we're gonna do a Flusterstorm. Counter that unless you pay 2, because it does storm off. Well, I guess 3, right? 1, 2, 3. That's your 3rd spell. Basically makes 3 copies that are gonna try to counter it. You got to pay 1 for each of those copies. It's the technical way that Flusterstorm works, but all right. Yeah, there is the Jace completed. That's another one where it's like I have a 1 of. I'm not running a lot of it. Oh, here we go. This is my favorite. This card is so good depending on how the meta is. When you're fighting against a bunch of big mana decks, it is not good. So it's going to be milling until you mill 20 mana value worth of things. So we at 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Counts. But yeah, look at all those lands that go. That's why I also run that old card. Somebody tell me the name of the card that I'm thinking of. For any other Mill players out there, you're going to be revealing the top cards of your opponent's library until they reveal 4 lands, and then all those cards go to the graveyard. But with things like Tasha's Hideous Laughter and things like that you're stripping away, you're playing against a deck that's running 18 lands, you're going to have a much easier time of being able to just win the game with one of those spells to help close you out. All right, Fetch. Where's the Archive Trap? We haven't seen it yet. Is this the moment? All right, here's the Helix. All right, we're doing the popping of the land, going to get this untapped island because we have another Flusterstorm. And this will be, Flusterstorm will be the 2nd spell that gets cast, so we got to put a stop to it. There it is. There's the Fluster. Counter unless you pay 2. So I'll pay 1, but hey, you have to pay 2. Do we have a way to finish? Can we close it out? Let's see. Another Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Yep, that's going to do it. We're going to tie it up there. That was, see, Tasha's Hideous Laughter so good against Boros Burn compared to our other, Mill 14 for 3. I don't know. It's like Tasha's usually is going to be hitting more than 14. Well, okay. Usually, unless you're fighting against those big mana decks. All right, any mulligans? It's like every game we've had this Goblin Guide opening. That's so good. I mean, I guess when you're thinking about it, it's like there's a play set of Goblin Guides, a play set of Swift Spirit. You're likely going to see one of them, and especially if you're aggressively mulliganing. All right. What are we going to be able to do to deal with the aggro already? Visions, we're going to start drawing. Oh my gosh, we need a black source here. All right, so there are 2 lands in hand. One of them is a colorless that allows players to draw a card. Another one enters taps but has the hideaway. This is I think where we need to do a swapping. And something that I've learned a lot playing the Jeskai control, Jeskai energy, or a deck that is heavier on tap lands, because I'm running 5 Surveil lands in my Jeskai list. And so being able to navigate, and you have to plan multiple turns ahead, not only just with the information you get off of Surveil lands, but in the case of I have lands that enter tapped, how do I need to make sure I have the mana I need to activate the spells that I need to activate? Plus, Hideaway lets us look at 4 cards, pick something, put it underneath. And those 4 cards could be a way to close out the game if we're able to manage to get a specific spell in, like, underneath, like a Tasha's Hideous Laughter or something like that. But this is the reasoning why we went for this untapped land. We wanted the Echoing Truth. We've taken quite a lot of damage already, like the Boros Charms, the Guides. Like, there's been a lot of damage flung our way. Now we're getting the fetch lands, but I still feel like the Hideaway land is better. Yeah, we could take 2, go to 10, and we have Echoing for the following turn. I don't know. Like, the information from the Hideaway just seems much more valuable there for that navigation line. But, we are the eye in the sky. We get this kind of more information based on what we see in the hand and can look down and kind of take a little bit more nuanced discussion and approach to it, where it's much harder in the moment to sit here and piece together the lines, especially if you're like, oh man, it's been a long time since I've played this matchup, or maybe you've never played this matchup, right? So now we're going to be seeing, look at this. This is what you expect to see with some of the burn decks, of just like flinging spells at your opponent. Now, the land to take note of is that little bit of the, Sunken Canyon there, because you get a draw card. So, but previously, burn decks would have a much harder time about closing out the games, but not anymore. We can be able to just kind of draw into more threats. But hey, here's another Lava Spike. Here's a Goblin Guide. So we're gonna, hey, I'm gonna, oh my gosh, how low are we going? We gotta fetch. We wish we could have fetched and shocked here, but we have a Fatal Push, so we got to get the Swamp. And then we're basically shut off from being able to surveil or being able to fetch or shock anymore after that. Oh, gosh. Yeah, so it's all right. That one resolves. Let's go to 1. Oh, gosh. Hey, and there's another spike that we had in hand. So yeah, we had to go for the line of the Fatal Push to try to stop us. No Fluster Storm to save the day this time around. We do a check. Hey, look, I got these lands. I got a Fatal Push. Oh my gosh, look at these Archive Traps. 26, and then to finish it up. Oh, that would have been it. The mill player even said, I was waiting for you to do a fetch, because that would have been 26 cards milled. That's when you follow it up with a Tasha's Hideous Laughter to win the game. Oh, man. The one time the burn player doesn't get a fetch land, they just kind of burn it down quick. And that's the fun and exciting stuff of this matchup here. And we get to see a little bit of what players brought in for their sideboard, what they were going for. Exquisite Firecraft. We see the Fluster Storms. I don't know if you need the Engineered Explosives. I guess they're fine because there are creatures, but the deck is light on creatures. Like 12? I don't know. It's sideboarding is a hard thing, guys. It's not easy, but that's our at least wrap up there of our Dimir Mill versus Boros Burn, the classic modern matchup for you all to be able to enjoy. Again, thanks for everybody that was tuning in and watching. We've got more games coming up every Monday and Thursday, and a sprinkling of fun content on Saturday if you're into MTGO and other stuff along that. But we've got some Twin coming up, some Jeskai Control, some Grixis Food, some Oculus, Boros Energy, all kinds of good stuff. So stay tuned for more action over here on NanMans Nerd Corner. But that's going to do it. Thanks for tuning in and watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next game.